Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about what are for me the greatest bands, albums and gigs of all time, based on listening to thousands of albums and going to hundreds of gigs over many years. Please press the red button to subscribe to the channel. It's free, it's easy to do. I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much. Now, today kicks off a series of albums that are going to be released that are going to be focusing on their 30th anniversary, because 30 years ago August and September was a monumental time for fans of rock and metal, and one of the first out of the blocks on the 12th of August 1991 was this now legendary album, Metallica by Metallica, or as it's mostly known as nowadays, the Black Album. It was their 5th studio album and it turned out to be one of the biggest selling heavy metal albums of heavy metal or rock albums of all time. Within the hard rock heavy metal field, it was only just behind the likes of Led Zeppelin's 4, AC/DC's Back in Black, another all black album cover, Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. They were the ones kind of in front of it. You've also got in the more rocky kind of vein, but not as hard rock. You've got things like the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac with their Rumours album. But just talking hard rock and heavy metal, this is way up there with one of the greatest albums of all time. And to celebrate the 30th anniversary, about a month or so after the anniversary, there's going to be released a whole slew of remastered reissues, whether it's various CD formats, various album formats, and also, interestingly, an album that's been created which is just full of, I think it's over 50 cover versions of songs that appear on this album by a real variety, diverse selection of artists, not just from rock and metal but from all musical genres. And Metallica have been previewing some of those tracks on their YouTube channel. Every week they release some of them, and some have been okay and some have been downright awful, to be honest, but none of them are patched on the original 12 songs that appear on this masterpiece. My introduction to this album came, like many, with that first single, the first track on the album, Enter Sandman. I actually knew it was going to be played on the radio, on Radio 1 in the UK, and was waiting for it to be played, and completely floored me when I heard that opening riff, and then it built up this massive excitement for the release of the album that was going to come just a few weeks later. And I couldn't wait to get the album. I actually arranged on my work day that I was going to be in a place where I could get to a record store where it would open, where the minute it would open I would be there, and I bought a vinyl copy and a CD copy, and straight away put the CD into my car, driving around. I was lucky enough I had a job at the time where I could do that kind of thing and kind of disappear off the map for a while while I listened to the 1 hour of brilliance that was the Metallica album. The album itself was produced by Bob Rock. Now, this was a move away from Metallica. The last 3 albums had been produced by a guy called Flemming Rasmussen. I don't know if I said that correct, that's how I'm pronouncing it. And Bob had really taken them away from the sound that they'd become known for. The album just before that, And Justice for All, this one here, was more in the prog metal vein. Bob, along with the main songwriters in the band, Lars and James, they decided for this album they were going to really tighten up the length of the songs and create almost your classic rock songs. This moved away from the thrash field more into real hard rock, heavy metal, classic rock type of song. So a lot more punchier and straight to the point, but still had that heaviness to them as well. The other thing that Bob Rock brought was an amazing sound, him and the engineers. The sound on this album to this day is still brilliant. I don't know how the remastering is going to make any difference to the original version of this album, because it really just does sound amazing even 30 years on. It wasn't an easy album for the band to make, because obviously they were changing what they'd done in their previous album, and they actually made a documentary at the time that gave an insight into the making of the album, a year and a half in the life of Metallica. Worth checking out, and I believe an outtakes version of that documentary is going to be part of the anniversary celebrations package that's going to be released in a few weeks' time. The packaging of the album itself was interesting. You can barely see the logo. It is a virtually black album. Down in the corner here we got a coiled snake, which is repeated on the back. I really don't know if you can see that, but I'm sure you've got this album in your collection anyway. And this coiled snake was taken from the Gadsden flag, which is an historical flag within USA history. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. And the album itself, well, many said it was inspired by the look of the album, inspired by AC/DC's Back in Black. Others said it was inspired by Spinal Tap's Smell the Glove. If you don't know what that is, Google it. So, it really is a masterpiece. It's 60 minutes of pure, brilliant metal. As always, I picked my favourite 4 tracks on the album. Of course, the opener, which I've already alluded to, Enter Sandman. Okay, it's been overplayed and I've overheard it, but still, if I kind of put it on and have a fresh ears, it's just a brilliant song. That main riff written by Kirk Hammett is just totally unforgettable. It's an instant earworm. It's just there, it sticks in your head, and also coupled with brilliant lyrics about nightmares. It's a real song for the ages. And yes, I know it's been in the set list forever and it can be a bit boring to a certain extent because you know what to expect from it, but no denying it. It is a brilliant, brilliant song. The next track I would choose is the second track on the album, and it was the second track that really floored me as well when I first heard this. Sad but true. You cannot but help to headbang to this big Black Sabbath-y style of riff and sing along with the brilliant vocal delivery of James. His vocals had really started to change now and take a lot more of a melodic tone to them on this album. And it's just got a monster drum sound on this. Absolutely. The whole album has a monster drum sound. Lars Ulrich, very, very underrated drummer in my opinion. A lot of people take the piss out of his drumming. I don't know why. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant drummer. And the drum sound on this album throughout is awesome. And then of course we have that magical solo from Kirk as part of the song as well. Another fantastic song. Next, one of my true Metallica favourite songs, Wherever I May Roam. I really, really love this song. It's got a great intro. I'd love to see this song played as an opener. It will often open some of their encores or like a mid-section in their set, but I think it'd be a great opener to a show. It's got a perfect intro for it, and then again, got the massive sound on it. It's lyrics about life on the road. It's got a great video to it as well. Now, one thing that's interesting about this album and this period of time too, is that this was the first time that Metallica really embraced commercialism. They hadn't been one for creating videos before. In fact, the first time they did a video for one of their songs, an official video, was for the song One on the previous album, and Justice for All. Here they ended up having a video for Enter Sandman, for Sad But True, for Wherever I May Roam. They also had videos for Unforgiven, and for, what was the other one? Nothing Else Matters. So, from a band that wasn't into videos, they really embraced the MTV scene. And that did a lot at this time to elevate their career to the heights that it now stands, and has stood ever since this album. The final track I will choose of my favourite 4 from this album is more of a deeper cut, so to speak. It's difficult to say deeper cuts on an album full of stone cold classics, but I'm going for Don't Tread on Me. Now, I mentioned the Gadsden flag earlier and this coiled snake that you can barely see on the album cover. Well, Don't Tread on Me and this snake were a logo that was used on this flag. In 1775, the American Revolution, the American revolutionaries, the military that were fighting under this flag, and that was their symbol to fight, and it remained a symbol for justice and for liberty for a long time. And at the time that this album was written, very heavily associated with the military, and Metallica have always been a strong supporter of the military and the people who work for the military. About 10 years ago, the flag and the motto was kind of taken over by some far-right nationalist political parties, and it's had a bit of a bad connotation in the last 10 years. And it's quite interesting. Metallica seem to have cancelled the song themselves. The last time they played it was about 10 years ago on their tour that they did, where they played the Black Album front to back for a special anniversary tour at that time. So we'll see if it ever reappears again, but I've got a feeling it might not. They just cancelled it themselves. But I don't know why, because it's a brilliant song. And forget the politics. It doesn't matter. They wrote this song about what it was in 1991 and what it meant to them in 1991, and they should be proud of that today. And it's a massive song. Again, it's got this brilliant kind of like marching military kind of riff to it, a staccato kind of feel, great vocal delivery by James again, and yet again a stunning guitar solo by Kirk Hammett. He really shines on this album, does Kirk. So there you have it. That's my favourite 4 tracks from this album. Let's take a little bit of a break and have a look at Rock T-Shirts by the Sea. Okay, so what about the Black Album tour live? Well, I was very lucky that literally only 5 days after the release of the album, I was at this show, the Monsters of Rock Festival in Donington. You'll see the headliners that day were AC/DC, but second on the bill was Metallica. And who else did we have that day? It was Motley Crue, Queensryche, and the Black Crowes, all for the bargain price of £22.59. Hey, that's a bit of an unusual ticket price. What a bargain! Those days of the Donington Monsters of Rock Festival in the UK were just unbelievable, the lineups that they used to have. And it was one day. I love the one-day festivals where they pack in the great bands. I still love the 3 and 4 day festivals, but it's a bit too much for old gits like me. One day in a field nowadays is plenty, especially if you can see that many great bands in one day. But anyway, so literally only 5 days after the album was released, Metallica were playing a gig to support the album. The Black Album tour had started. Now, I'm not going to talk about that particular gig because, to be honest, it was mainly still a set list of tracks from their previous albums. They only played Enter Sandman and Sad But True that day. And I had to wait over a year before they returned to the UK for the what is now legendary Evening with Metallica tour. And here is the very faded ticket from that show. It was at the NEC Arena in Birmingham. They played a couple of nights there. I was there on the first night. I wish I'd been there the second night as well, because something very special happened when Diamond Head joined them. Damn it, for the encore. But anyway, didn't matter. This particular night was an amazing night as well. The Evening with Metallica tour is captured on the live shit binge and purge release as a DVD of a full show on there. Not the one I went to. That was from I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But anyway, on to the one I went to. The one I saw, 4th of November 1992. A stunning evening of Metallica. No support band. What they did, very clever idea, and to be honest, Metallica's history has been full of clever ideas. They themselves very creative individuals, and they have a great management team behind them who've really come up with many fan-friendly ideas over the years that I've been following them. The show starts with a kind of little mini history about the making of the Black Album, and interspersed with that is some footage from the location where they're playing, from the area where they're playing, and also they go live backstage with a camera as well, and they're just dicking about basically backstage, trying to make jokes, often failing as they're not particularly good comedians, but it's just fun to see it, and it creates an interesting way to start the show, and rather than just listen to a support band that 9 times out of 10 we don't want to listen to anyway. And then we're into the main show itself. A massive 3-hour show. Phenomenal set list. On my particular night, there were 7 songs from the Black Album. We had Wherever I May Roam, which was actually the opener on that night. They listened to me, and it was the set opener on that night, and what an opener it was. We had Sad But True, The Unforgiven, Of Wolf and Man, Through the Never, Nothing Else Matters, and they closed the gig with Enter Sandman. So a real heavy dose of the Black Album that evening. 23 songs in all, if you include, they did 4 songs as part of an And Justice for All melody. So that would make it 23 songs in total. And it really was a brilliant night with Metallica. The only slight criticism I would have is that they had a massive solo section, bass and guitar solo section, which was around about 20 minutes long, which is, in my opinion, far too excessive. Even if you're Neil Peart on the drums and I don't know, Steve Vai on guitar, that's still a lot of bass and did I say bass? Yeah, I mean bass. I don't know why I said about Neil Peart on the drums. Yeah, who's the best bass player out there? Billy Sheehan, he's a pretty good solo bass player. I wouldn't want to listen to Billy Sheehan solo for 20 minutes. Never mind Jason Newsted, who basically just goes around and gives it the great head bang. Whatever. It was too long, it was too much. Okay, it was an opportunity to go for a pee and a beer, but that's a bit excessive for a guitar solo thing. And in fact, one of the things they should have learned from Bob Rock is that sometimes less is more. And although it was great to say, yeah, it was a big 3-hour show, they could have trimmed it down a little bit and they wouldn't have lost anything. And you know, in fact, about the editing of Metallica, they could do with that today as well, I think. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the albums Death Magnetic and Hardwired to Self-Destruct, the last 2 albums they've done. But again, they seem to have really extended the length of some of their songs, got more into the prog metal field. And I wouldn't mind a harken back to the days of a tight, great 4 or 5 minute heavy metal hard rock song. I really enjoy that. Okay, putting that aside, brilliant time to be a Metallica fan it was. I saw them, I think, another 2 or 3 times on as part of the Black Album tour, and every time I had a fantastic time. You can see by this t-shirt, it's had a bit of wear over those 30 years. It's a lot more faded than some of the others I have around me. It's one of my favourite shirts, one of my favourite times to be a Metallica fan. So there you have it, celebrating 30 years of the Black Album by Metallica. Thank you very much for watching. Please press the red button to subscribe to the channel. Free, easy to do. I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much. And remember, as always, we rock.